പറഞ്ഞ റിസർച്ചിന് നമുക്കുള്ള വൈബിൾ പോസിബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഓപ്ഷൻസ് ഒക്കെ ഏതൊക്കെയാണ്, അതിനെപ്പറ്റിയുള്ള കറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് റോഡ് മാപ്പ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് തരാൻ വേണ്ടിയാണ് വി ഹാവ് ഡോക്ടർ അഭിലാഷ് സൂര്യൻ, ആ ഫാക്കൽറ്റി മെമ്പർ ആൻഡ് ഓൾസോ ദ KTU റിസർച്ചർ ഓഫ് ദി ഇയർ 2020 ഈ വർഷം നമ്മുടെ കൂടെ ഉള്ളത്. സോ ഈ ഒരു സമയത്ത് നല്ല രീതിയിലൊരു ഇന്ററാക്റ്റീവ് സെഷൻ ആയിരിക്കും. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും ഫ്രീ ആയിട്ട് നിങ്ങളുടെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസും ക്വയറീസ് ഒക്കെ എന്തെങ്കിലുമൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ക്ലിയർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒരു സെഷനാണ്. നമ്മുടെ രീതിയിൽ ഒരു ഫോർമാലിറ്റി ഒന്നും വെക്കുന്നില്ല. അപ്പൊ ഇൻ കേസ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇപ്പൊ സാർ ഇതൊരു പ്രസന്റേഷൻ പോലെ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യും. ഇൻ കേസ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ക്വയറീസ് ഒക്കെ അതിന്റെ ഇടയ്ക്കുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇൻ ദ മിഡ്സ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ദ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ യു ക്യാൻ ആക്ച്വലി ഇന്ററപ്റ്റ്, ഒരു സീനും ഇല്ല, ഇന്ററപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്ത് നിങ്ങളുടെ ക്വയറീസ് ഒക്കെ ക്ലിയർ ചെയ്യാം. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങളുടെ ചാറ്റ് ബോക്സിൽ എഴുതിയുടെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ഞങ്ങൾ ടൈംലി ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് കളക്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ഒക്കെ രീതിയിൽ ആൻസർ ചെയ്യുന്നതായിരിക്കും. സോ ആ രീതിയിൽ മേക്ക് യൂസ് ഓഫ് ദ ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റി. കാരണം സാറിന് പറ്റുന്ന അത്രയും നിങ്ങൾ ഹെൽപ്പ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയാണ് നമ്മൾ ഈ ഒരു സെഷൻ നമ്മൾ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തേക്കുന്നത്. സോ ഗ്രാബ് ദി ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റി, സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ആസ്കിംഗ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്, ഗെറ്റ് ഓൾ യുവർ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ക്ലിയർ. So now let me welcome Dr. Abhilash Surya to take over the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ankita. So Ankita has already told you all that this is going to be a very informal kind of session. So don't hesitate in interrupting me and asking me questions or queries. I am speaking in English because I assume that there may be some students who may not follow Malayalam. But if you don't understand anything that I am speaking, you can ask for clarification. So don't worry about that also. So I am having a presentation only because that I guess will inspire you to ask questions or maybe prompt you to ask questions. So now I will go to my presentation. So just feel free to interrupt me wherever you want me to explain something, or if you want something else that you have in mind. So I will just switch off my video and start my presentation now. Yeah, so this is actually a presentation which I have quickly assembled. So may not be professional. Some of it might have been from previous presentations that I have given in some other places. So some of you, if you have previously attended my presentations, might be finding it that you have already seen it. Anyway, whenever I start a presentation, in fact, I have given presentations in about 25 countries and many Indian states also. So wherever I give a presentation, I show this first. I'm coming from India, to be precise, and I'm coming from this part of India, Trivandrum, the southernmost point of the peninsula. And I am from College of Engineering, Trivandrum. Not CET, because I want to introduce my institution with its official name. So I give an introduction about my institution first. So I would like you people also to pick up this habit. That is only reason why I have shown you all this, because I know all of you are aware about these things. But I want you all, if you ever go for a presentation as a student of CET, as a student of College of Engineering, Trivandrum, it is in the benefit of the institution as well as in the benefit of us all that you have this slide, because, or this kind of a slide, because the more famous our institution is, more famous we are. So why am I talking to you is because, your age is important. So many of our national heroes started very young. So when I was young, there was nobody to tell me these things. I was the first engineer from the entire family on my father's and my mother's side. So wherever possible, I try to give whatever I have learned through my own research and my own experience to other people. So this is in fact myself with my student, John. I published my first international JANA paper when I was well past 35. And maybe a more prestigious journal by the time I was about 40. 35 is the age when you are no longer considered as a young researcher. And on the contrary, my student John had a publication even before he was 25. By maybe around 20, he had a publication in a very prestigious journal. So that is why I tell you that your age is important. You need to have the awareness about these things even as you are a student. Most of you might be interested in these things. Some of you may not be interested, but you should have this awareness. Whether you want to go for it or not should be based on an awareness, right? So that is what I am trying to give through these presentations and groups. Okay, so this is in fact I'm teaching life skills for UG students. So this is in fact the World Health Organization's list of life skills. All these are important if you want to do research, if you want to do projects, if you want to become an engineer. But the first one, self-awareness, is the most important. You should be aware about your own strengths, your own weaknesses, and your own qualities. So that is one thing which I want to stress throughout this presentation also. Speaking of self-awareness, you might be already be aware about the fact that there are multiple intelligences. It is not that the logical and mathematical or presentation abilities are the only kind of intelligence that we have. There are other types of intelligence as well. There are musical, visual, for example, a movie director, Avatar, for example, is a visual treat. So visual intelligence is necessary, and all these intelligences may not be there in one person. In some people, some kind of intelligence will be dominant, other may not be. Musical, for example, if I start to sing here, you will leave the session. So I don't have that kind of, maybe I will enjoy the music, but I don't have the kind of intelligence to properly control my notes, musical notes, for example. So these are all things that you should understand. And based on that, you have to assess what kind of intelligence is dominant in your personality trait and what is lacking. So based on that only, you can decide your course of action. Then we need to think ahead and develop the expertise. So based on our self-awareness, based on the self-awareness about our own intelligence, what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses, we need to think ahead and develop the expertise. Hone those skills, fine-tune those skills. So to be a successful engineer, you need more than engineering skills. You need to express your ideas. You need to make powerful presentations. You need to communicate and collaborate with peers. So do not wait until you graduate to take the next step. Don't think that only the academics matters. In addition to academics, you need to concentrate. You need to give importance to all these things if you want to become a successful engineer. Because what engineers do finally are all about doing projects and all about doing research, all about presenting whatever they have done or they are doing. Okay. Then regarding the vision and the plan, you need to have the bigger picture in advance. You might be a student of a second or third year BTech program. you need to have a bigger picture in advance, that what are the possibilities once you graduate? What are the possibilities for higher studies? What are the possibilities for employment? These things you should have in advance, so that you can plan to reach by the time you graduate those destinations that you have in mind. So for those, you need a firm grip of the fundamentals. Suppose you are learning mechanical engineering, you should have a firm grip of the fundamentals of mechanical engineering. And that is what you are doing now, learning the fundamentals in your UG program. So don't think that this is not important. If you are planning to become an engineer, this is very, very important, because if you are not paying enough attention to your learning of fundamentals, later on, when you are going for higher studies or when you are in the employment, you have to come back and brush up your fundamentals. That means you are spending additional effort at that time. You have to find time for that. Then you need to maintain a good academic record, whether you are applying for higher studies, whether you are going for employment, all these things. If you have a good academic record, that is a stamp of your quality, that you have learned your fundamentals well, you have done your job well, because learning is your present job. Okay. Then other than that, you need to pursue out of classroom learning. There are a lot of opportunities now to supplement whatever you are learning in the classroom through online forums, online learning programs. For example, we have Coursera and edX in our campus that was offered to the students, right? So while learning out of the classroom, you need to identify appropriate mentors. Sometimes you may not be able to properly understand whatever is contained in those things. So the earlier you are identifying proper mentors, the better for you. I had shown you some of the images of our genius, right? Sachin Tendulkar was a genius. One reason behind his success was not only his natural abilities as a sportsman. Very early in his life, he had mentors. Like, for example, his elder brother was his mentor early. And then he had very good coaches later on. So it was a combination of his own abilities as well as the guidance from the mentors that created Sachin Tendulkar. Likewise, for PV Sindhu also, it was the same. Very early age, her parents were the mentors. Later on, we know that she had the mentor in P. Gopichand, the former champion. So identifying a mentor with whom you feel comfortable, with whom you can ask silly questions, this is all important while you are planning your vision and your further success. Also depends a lot on how you have a good mentor early on. It may not be possible for everybody. If somebody is feeling comfortable with one person, that person another person need not feel comfortable with the same mentor. So that is something you need to try out and see. Then one more thing that I need to add at this point of time, especially at the lockdown, COVID, the pandemic time, is that you need to explore the possibility for interdisciplinary, interinstitutional, and international collaboration. There are possibilities, but you need to explore and find those openings. Why I am saying interdisciplinary is because, see, this is a helicopter. I used to work with HAL Bangalore in the Advanced Light Helicopter project. So this is the ALH, which is called THRUE. So if you want the helicopter to fly, you need all types of engineers. You need the interdisciplinary collaboration. In the early days when I was working on this project, people were saying that this is your job, this is my job. Electrical engineer will say that my job is electrical only. But you know, once you grow in the institution, you become in the general manager or a project manager. At that time, you cannot say that electrical engineering is your job. Helicopter may fail because of the failure of any component. It can be electrical component, it can be electronic component, it can be mechanical, it can be aerodynamics, it can be rotor dynamics. So therefore, it can be manufacturing defect. So therefore, interdisciplinary learning, interdisciplinary project opportunities are essential. Even some of the higher education institutions are placing importance on whether you have done a project which is interdisciplinary. So that is something which is very important. Now, acquiring skill sets. What are the skills that skill set that you require while you want to pursue higher studies, while you want to pursue a career in project planning or project implementation and all? We need to develop the reading and writing skills. We need to develop effective presentation giving skills. We need coding skills. We need to be familiar with some tools such as MATLAB or Scilab or ANSYS or OpenFOAM. Many tools are available. We need to be familiar with at least MS Excel. Many possibilities are there with MS Excel also. Then we need to be familiar with some post-processing and data analysis tools. Now, all these tools, all these skills are required because, once you join a higher education program, you will be really busy, especially if you are joining in a highly demanding institution. Doing your UG program in CET or PG program in CET, you may not be looking for an institution which is of a lesser standing compared to CET. You will be naturally looking for an institution of higher standing. So there, the curriculum, the academic rigor, everything will be more demanding. So at that time, you may not have time for all these, right? So even as you are learning your academic syllabus and classroom learning, you should all be concentrating on these things also. Tools are important because, suppose you are doing your higher studies in a foreign university, many of the assignments will be so demanding that you may not be able to complete it in one day or maybe 1 week. Without coding skills, without being familiar with, I think some that tools like is going to be handy in the higher studies option that you are planning. Okay, so you need to do these things. Now, coming to reading and writing, research, project planning, projects, all these things will require you to read and write. First thing about reading is you should be aware about what you should read. Like, for example, you are interested in helicopters. So you are interested in finding out about what is happening in the research and project side of helicopters, what is happening latest. So then you should be able to find out from what source you will get the correct information. Okay, internet will help you in that, but at the same time, internet will give you a lot of misinformation also. So therefore, you should be able to know in advance that what are all the correct sources from which you can read the correct information or the latest information regarding the topic that you are going to choose, whether it is for your project or whether it is for your higher studies. Now, improve your technical vocabulary. Now, that will happen if you read a lot of technical magazines, lot of technical journal papers and all. Gradually, you will be familiar with more and more technical words. So this is actually the case with somebody who is a good writer also. A good writer will also be a good reader. So people starts to write after reading a lot of books. So naturally, they will have a very good vocabulary backup. So when they are writing, it will flow. The words will flow. They will have one word. They will have many words for one situation or many sentences for one situation. That happens because they are reading a lot of books, right? Same thing here also. Now, you need to increase your reading speed because initially when you are an undergraduate student, your reading speed may not be sufficient because you are not familiar with many of the technical terms. You are not familiar with many of the definitions. You are not familiar with many of the technology. So therefore, once you do this regularly, reading papers, reading technical magazines and all, naturally you will be familiar with technical jargon, and your speed will increase. Just like you have developed the reading speed from being a child to being a teenager and to being an adult, your technical reading speed will also improve if you regularly read technical content from magazines, from internet, from journals. So then another thing is we need to practice rewriting passages. Now, why that is important is because we all are used to reproduce what we read from textbooks in our examinations. That is the kind of training that we have all received. We read textbooks, we read notes given by our teachers, and then we learn by studying this. Then when the exam comes, naturally, even if it is not by conscious efforts, our mind, our brain is fed with this information, and we will reproduce it as such. Now, when you are attempting to write papers for journals or articles, now this should not be the way, because when you are writing what is in your mind exactly as it is, the problem is that your article will be exactly similar to somebody else's article. So that will not be acceptable when you want to publish something in some good quality journal or good quality conference. So that is why this practice of rewriting passages in your own words is important. Then we need to develop the habit of citing our sources. Like, for example, we are taking seminar. Suppose you are taking seminar, UG seminar, final year seminar. Many of us, including us, the faculty members, what we used to do is that we used to present somebody else's work as if it was our own work. That is unethical. This is not possible when you go to institutions of higher learning, or if you go to international conferences. You always need to cite the sources from which you have taken the information. You need to give credit to the people who have originally worked on that project or that research work. So that you need to develop at an early stage, now itself. And finally, whatever you are submitting, whether it is an assignment in a foreign university where you are doing your higher studies, or whether it is a conference paper, or whether it is a journal paper, you need to check the similarity before you submit it. Because even if you are not consciously copy-pasting from other sources, the problem is that you might reproduce what is in your mind, what you have read. So you may not even realize that. But if you check with the help of a software, then you can see that a lot of similarity is there with other people's work. In international journals and international conferences, this similarity should be less than 20% or less than 50%, or 15%, 1/5. Now, this 20 or 15 is allowed because, many of the technical jargon we will have same. And maybe sometimes the equations will have to be written, equations will be same. So that is why this 15 to 20% allowance is given. So this is important because in some of the foreign universities, if you go for higher studies, the very fact that you have similarity in an assignment that you have submitted may invite disqualification. So that is important. So these things are very, very important. So as you are placing some importance on your academics, you have to place some importance in these things also. Now coming to literary and technical writing. So you might be familiar with some of these verses, some of these poems, right? So these are all literary writing. So this is actually from Fyodor Dostoevsky. So Dostoevsky is not only a famous writer, his other claim to fame is that maybe among the most famous writers, he is the only engineering graduate and only engineer by profession. And so anyway, that is not important here. So if you try to put these things in literary sentences in Google's translator and see, you can see that the translator will be confused. And why this is important in technical writing is because if you use literary type of language in technical writing, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that many of the countries who are excelling in engineering projects and research are not English-speaking countries. You take Japan, you take Korea, you take China, you take Germany, you take Sweden, you take France, so you take Netherlands. So these, some of these countries, people might be able to speak English, people will understand English, but at the same time, they are not learning engineering in English. They are all learning in their native language. So naturally, we want our publications to be read by throughout our peers throughout the world. So naturally, that means we want to keep our language as simple as possible. So when you are writing, you need to write in as simple English as possible. So that is the major difference between literary and technical writing. So then reading. So reading, of course, you need to read what is happening now. But at the same time, I would like to recommend that you read some of the classics. So these are some of the classics I would like to recommend. These are all available through Google in internet. Nikola Tesla's paper from another century. Theodor von Karman was an authority in supersonic aerodynamics, student of Ludwig Prandtl, and maybe the father of the space program indirectly. Then Satish Thamai is our own von Karman. You might be knowing him. His PhD thesis is also available. So one thing that is common in all these is that the simple language they have used. Even an undergraduate student can understand if he is familiar with the technical jargon used. So reading such classics, just like reading classics in literature, helped us to develop a very keen interest to literature. Reading classics in technical writing will help you to develop some kind of interest if you are oriented in that way. That is one thing that I would like to recommend. So now, before going to next section, are there any questions or queries? I'm speaking in a monotonous way. So if you have some questions or queries, you can ask. Or if there are some queries in the chat box, somebody can read me, because I am not able to see because I have the full screen. Ankita?
Yes, sir. Queries about
then I will continue, no problem. I would like to once again remind you that I don't know what you want. So therefore, if the flow is not as per your expectations, you can interrupt me and ask me queries in between. Okay. So outcome-based research projects. Now, how to go for outcome-based research projects? First and foremost, you should know what is trending in your area of interest or area in which you are planning to develop expertise. So that how you will understand is by keeping yourself abreast with what is happening by reading magazines or reading journals or joining online forums or following the authorities through Twitter or through Facebook or through LinkedIn or other social media. So through that you can understand what is trending in your areas. Then you need to plan in advance. You need not wait till you pass out to decide. So you need not wait till you reach S7 to decide your project topic. If you are able to identify a topic which is reasonably trending or reasonably relevant, if you are not able to do it yourself, you can always approach your mentors, your parents, your family members, your cousins, or your teachers. So you can, with the help of those people, you can identify some projects in advance so that you will have time to develop the skills required to do that project and start from day one when a project has to be started. Then you need to read a lot of current literature on that topic, but don't end your reading once you identify the topic, because there are so many people working on the same topic across the world. Internet has opened up the possibilities for anyone sitting in any country, anywhere in the world, to do high quality research or think about high quality projects. So therefore, you need to keep on reading. Even as you have started your project, you need to keep on reading and understand if somebody else is doing the same thing, because you don't want to end up doing the same thing as somebody else, right? So therefore, what is wrong with the many students I have seen is that they read a paper and they decide that, okay, this has some content I can develop, so they stop. That should not be the case. You need to read the past as well as future of a paper. Past of the paper can be read by reading the references in that paper. Future of the paper can be read by looking at which all papers have cited that paper. So therefore, that is why I said you need to read continuously. Research tools, you need to be familiar with the research tools. Whichever project you are selecting, you need some kind of tools for doing that project, right? It can be computational tools. Computational tools can be either commercially available tools or open source tools. It can be experimental tools, it can be analytical tools. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is that you need to have the resources. The project is identified, but at the same time, you need to think whether your institution or your collaborators or the industry with which you are trying to do the project have the facilities in terms of computational, experimental or analytical facilities, or in terms of the manpower. Like you might be requiring the help of some mentor, faculty mentor, industry mentor, alumni mentor, or family mentor. Do you have such resources at hand? Then only you can select a project. So the reason is you can go for over-ambitious projects, but at the same time, these things are important because otherwise you may not be able to satisfactorily complete the project. And once you do the project, don't think that with some paper and their results we can finish the project. It is not the quantity, it is the quality of your output that matters. Whether it is trying for publication, whether it is trying for higher studies, it is always the quality that is looked at, not the quantity of your work. And when you are doing a project, many a time what is lacking in a project report or what is lacking in a paper is that you don't discuss the fundamentals. So basically, any finding a project or a research work has should be based on the fundamental theory, right? So that must be discussed. So you are basing your finding, or you are basing your results, everything on certain fundamentals that must be stated. And finally, whatever results you have, it must be validated against something. It depends on what kind of project you are doing. And you should do an error analysis also. Like there is a possibility of your project or your finding having an error of this much percentage. And there are allowable limits for error. And your error should not exceed that allowable limits. Then only it will be accepted. And finally, when you plan your research project in advance, you should have an eye for publication or patents. What is the potential for this work to be published? What is the potential for this work to for a patent submission? These things should be kept in mind while you decide on a project. Now, while selecting projects, you can align, if it is possible for you to align to some of these grand challenges in engineering listed, like making solar energy economical, providing energy from fusion, develop carbon sequestration methods, manage the nitrogen cycle, provide access to clean water, restore and improve the urban infrastructure, advance the health informatics. So all these are the grand challenges in engineering. This is incomplete. So I will show you why. So for example, this is a brilliant idea developed by an Indian in MIT. So this is actually, you can see that the exhaust, some of you might be familiar with it. The exhaust from vehicles, carbon is collected and converted into ink. So this is actually coming under this carbon sequestration. So this is a very good idea which is contributing to the addressing of grand challenges in engineering. So likewise, this is the nitrogen cycle. At first look, we may think that there may not be anything an engineer can contribute, but at the same time, nitrogen cycle is very critical. You can identify engineering equipment which is damaging the nitrogen cycle and think about replacing those equipment with simple ideas that can replace those equipment, and that can contribute to the fixation of the nitrogen cycle, which is actually very critical for all living things. So therefore, if you are able to align, if it is not possible, no problem. But if you are able to align some of your, if some of you can align your projects to these things, these grand challenges, it will be recognized throughout the world. If you are applying for an employment opportunity with a company, or if you are applying for higher studies, you can always present your project as aligned to these things. So therefore, think about these things. And this is the global goals for sustainable development. At first look, this again may not look areas where engineers can do projects, but it is possible. Just like I mentioned in the case of nitrogen cycle, it is always possible for engineers to think about projects which can be aligned to these goals. So therefore, when you are choosing a project, if you have these things in mind, it is always good, and it is always going to help you in your pursuit for higher studies as well as career excellence. Now, please, yeah, yes, please.
We have a question in the chat box now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, the question was posted by Sri Lakshmiki, and the question is publishing of a paper such that reading and studying several papers on some broad topic and by making a review paper by ourselves allowed? Or will that be considered similar with others' works?
A review paper is actually a good effort, but at the same time, choosing a topic and reviewing what has happened in that topic from the very beginning of that maybe that idea or that invention to the latest is actually not an easy task. And while writing a review paper, it is not that you are maybe taking some paragraph or some major finding from one particular paper and commenting about that. You need to have a critical reading of the papers that you are reviewing, and then you need to write the review in such a way that it is actually a critical review about the contribution of that paper to the chosen field of review. So actually that is not an easy task. Many people will be under the impression that writing a review paper is very easy compared to writing a research project paper. But in fact, writing a review paper requires you to have more knowledge, and conducting the literature review itself will be much more challenging. But if you are up to it, it is always good. If some of your faculty mentors or some of your mentors that you can find from outside the institution can help you or guide you in that, it will be very good. But at the same time, the danger in the review paper is that once you submit that to some journal, naturally the journal will send it for peer review, and the peer review might go to the people who have worked previously on the very topic that you are reviewing. So naturally, it is more challenging to impress the reviewers when you are writing a review paper. But I am never discouraging any of you. It is always a good way to start the reading and writing process. I hope I addressed that question.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes.
In research tools, you mentioned analytical tools.
Can you repeat? I'm not able to hear.
Yeah. In research tools, you mentioned analytical tools. So, sir, I am currently doing my MTech project, main project. So, in that, I am using Abacus software. But in research papers, we have to align our results with the, the simulation results with the experimental results, right? So, I am not yet sure how to do that in the finite element analysis in Abacus. So, how can I get more clarity regarding which method they have chosen in the simulation software like that?
You mean to ask me that what kind of equations and what kind of methodology is used at the back end of Abacus?
Yeah, they haven't clearly mentioned in the paper in detail about what.
No. With one paper, you may not be able to find out. You have to search. Like for example, there are online forums. Even Abacus. I don't know whether Abacus manual will be having the equations and all. So you need to check that. It might be available. I don't think that it is not available. It will be available. Don't ever limit yourself to one single paper.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Abhishek has asked a question. I think it flashed in my screen.
Okay, sir. I'll read out the question.
Yeah.
Is devising a scientific or engineering breakthrough necessary to publish a paper? And how novel should the idea be?
That is a good question, actually. So a breakthrough, a major breakthrough is not necessary for publishing a paper. That is the first part of the question. The second part, novelty. The novelty is necessary for any paper to be accepted. Like, for example, you are reading a paper. Say you are reading a paper related with aerodynamics of an airplane, say. So you have read one or two papers. So they have postulated something about the aerodynamics, and they have introduced something on the airplane body that will improve the aerodynamic performance of the airplane. Now you can think about another idea which will achieve the same thing or do even better. So you're introducing something on the body of the airplane, but it is the idea that such a problem can be attempted might have come after reading the original papers. But you need to think in such a way that suppose I am doing some modification in the design, and then I am able to achieve a better performance, aerodynamic performance, then that will be accepted. That we may not be able to say that will be accepted as a major innovation by the airline industry or aircraft industry, but at the same time, this idea will be accepted by a journal, because you have introduced something novel which will improve the aerodynamic performance of the airplane. So that will be accepted. But again, once you publish this paper, somebody in the aircraft industry is reading this and they are thinking about the possibility whether this can be implemented. So that impact of that work will depend on how the industry accepts your presentation. But you need not bother about that. As long as you are keen on publishing and going through the process of doing a project, publishing it in a good journal, and using that for your entry into a higher studies program or into a research institution as a researcher. I hope I have clarified that. Okay, so these are actually some of the projects done in our institution. You are all aware about this. And also IIT Madras, the standing wheelchair. It has come in the newspapers also. You might have read about that. So these are actually projects attempted by students like you. This is actually wall climbing robot, right? Which was patented, patent was awarded, done by CET students. So these are all actually socially relevant projects and for projects which can be attempted, which are successful. And the one below is the Mars rover, the rover which can travel all by itself in Mars, right? So vertical wall climbing robot, if you can design, of course, you can also think about the Mars rover. That is how you improve your reach. Like if you are able to do the wall climbing robot, then why don't you think about the Mars robots or maybe space station robots and all. So the same kind of skill sets with a little bit of upgradation and right kind of mentors, you might be able to pull it off. That is how you need to think out of the box, things that you can do. Okay, then comes conferences. Which conference to attend? One thing that a lot of conferences will be coming up. So one thing that you have to keep in mind is that you need to attend the conference which is actually matching in scope with your work. You have done a project work. Say your project work is on robotics. Then a conference has come up on, say, we have recently conducted a conference on satellites. So your work is on some robots for, say, health hospitals. Then don't apply to this satellite conference. Why? Because you might have a conference paper, but you may not get sufficient inputs, because experts coming for the satellite conference will be experts in satellite technology. But if you are going for a conference in robotics, you might be getting there are far better chance of getting good feedback, far better chance of getting an offer for employment or getting an offer for higher studies, because the audience will be people with expertise in robotics. You are chosen. So that you have to be careful. Don't apply for any conference. Then you need to check whether the conference has a proper peer review mechanism. Why it is? Because your paper will be submitted. It will be read by two people with some kind of expertise in the project area that you have done. Now the advantage is that whatever mistake you have will be brought to your attention. You can correct it, and some inputs will be also given. So whatever you have done will have an improved quality. because of this peer review mechanism. But at the same time, be careful about the conference. Submit your good quality work only to conferences which are run by reputed bodies, because if you have submitted to some conference which is not organized by reputed bodies, the problem is that your idea might be stolen. So therefore, you have to carefully decide with the help of your faculty mentor or whoever is mentoring you whether a particular conference is safe and run ethically, so that your idea will not be stolen by somebody else and presented as their own. So that you have to be very careful. Then it must be professionally organized conference by institutions of eminence, IITs, NITs. In some other institutions also, they are doing good conferences in collaboration with professional bodies like IEEE and all. Then whether you have the benefit of your paper being published in an indexed proceedings. The advantage is that when you have an indexed proceedings, it will be available online long after you have done that work. So you might be applying for higher studies after 5 years. If it is an indexed proceedings, it will be available even after 5 years. If you search online, it will be available. Otherwise, it may not be available. So that will be not good for your long-term interest. Now, where to publish in journals? There are a lot of options available. You can go to some of these websites: Journal Finder of Elsewhere, Journal Suggester, Journal Finder of Wiley, Manuscript Matcher. So the advantage is that you can have the manuscript ready, then you can put your title and abstract in some of these websites, and a list of journals will be available to you, where you will be able to submit.
Sir, we have two other questions which have come up in the chat box.
Yeah, please.
Okay, the first question asked by Ellen Isaac Cherian. What is there a difference between the project works of BTech graduates compared with BSc graduates?
BSc graduates? You mean science? BSc?
Can Ellen Isaac Cherian please unmute himself and explain the question once again?
Yes, sir. I talked about I asked about the some BSc graduates, like those who took science as their undergraduate degree. They also will do some project works, right? They will also publish their works, they will also publish their results, right? So how will
I don't think there are differences in the work. BSc students will be publishing work based on what they have learned. BTech students will be publishing works based on their learning. So I don't think as far as publications are concerned, there is no much difference. Even this history and political science students can publish based on, say, they can assess the performance of political parties in the local body elections in the recently conducted in Kerala, and then write a paper based on that. So I don't think that publication is related to anybody can publish, but only thing is there must be some novelty, some kind of it should not be somebody else's idea which is previously published. It must be something new. I hope I addressed that question.
Okay, now another question which has come up is by Namita MS. If a unique technique is used in a paper, and if they haven't explained the detailed methodology and haven't used in earlier papers, is it ethical to write to them asking for the details?
Absolutely no problem. Many of the authors will be responding. So, I'm coming to those things also. You can have just like social media for research, social media for project, which is called ResearchGate, for example. Or otherwise, you can have, in ResearchGate, you can ask for papers directly to the authors. So they can send you the papers. Then even many of the people will be willing to share their expertise, clear your doubts, provided they have time. And all these things you have to ask very politely. See, all these possibilities are there. How you are making use of that possibilities is what will help you stand out in the crowd. So even in LinkedIn, you can follow, or you can add some of these experts in your areas of interest, and then you can communicate with them. Some of them will be responding, some of them may not be responding, but you can always try. Yes. Then these are some of the leading publishers. Why I am giving the leading publishers is not only for attending publications. These are all publishers whom we can trust. Like if you are reading a publication from some of these publishers, we can trust that it is more often than not, it is a peer-reviewed paper which is published. And also another thing is that if you are publishing with these publishers, there is a fair chance that it will be available maybe even after 20-30 years when you might be working in a research institution or or academic institution. Then these are some of the journals, IMEC key journals, for example, where mechanical engineering students can attempt to publish. Again, you can decide on the journal based on consultations with your mentors or your seniors. Then quality measures of journal. These are some of the indicators. If a journal is indexed in Web of Science or Science Citation Index, which is in fact Science Citation Index expanded now, or Social Science Citation Index, Arts and Humanities Citation Index, Emerging Sources Citation. If it is a new journal, it may not be listed in any of these. It will be listed under Emerging Sources Citation Index, Book Citation Index, Conference Proceeding Citation Index. So if some of these quality measures are there, we can blindly assume that it may be having some kind of quality. Then Scopus, if a journal is Scopus indexed or if a conference proceeding is Scopus indexed, we can have a fair amount of reassurance about the quality. Then SCImago journal ranking, it is based on relative merits. Like for example, these are all overall. Say impact factor is there, for example. Impact factor is actually based on the number of citations a journal is receiving over the years for the articles published in that journal. The SCImago journal ranking, the difference is that it is relative. For example, aerospace journals may have a low impact factor because only those people who are working on aerospace related technologies will be citing the papers in aerospace journals. So impact factor will be low. But energy, that people were from electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electronics, physics, chemistry, all these people will be working on energy research. So impact factor of the energy journals will be much high. So to circumvent this unfair absolute grading of impact factor, this SCImago journal rankings make use of relative grading. So that means if your journal is in the top 25%, if your area is aerospace, and if a journal is in the top 25%, it will be Q1. If the journal is in the top 50%, between 25 and 50 of all the journals ranked, then it will be in Q2. So Q1 journals are naturally the best journals in any particular topic. So that is how the quality measures of journals are. Now, showcasing. Once you have a paper published, you need to showcase your work in some of these forums: Google Scholar, ResearchGate, Blounce, Scopus, ORCID is just like our Aadhaar card. Researchers have an ID, LinkedIn. In all these forums, you can showcase your publications so that it will reach other people working on your topic, and you will be recognized. And one thing that you have to keep in mind is that very early you have to realize that your name should be unique. Like for example, my name is Abhilash Suryan. So in some papers it will appear as A Suryan. In some papers it will appear as Suryan A. In some papers it will be Abhilash Suryan. In some papers it will be Suryan Abhilash. It all depends on how that particular journal or how that particular conference write your name, whether it is surname first or whether it is with initials, like that. So therefore you need to decide now itself. For example, somebody will be having the name, say Manoj AS. So if you are writing Manoj AS, the problem may be that there will be so many other Manoj AS. So you can decide which part of your initial you want to expand, so that you give the name for your first publication and you can retain that throughout. So you can decide on that now, but there is absolutely no problem if you have changed your name, if ORCID ID is there. That is a unique ID. So while you are submitting a publication, you can give that ID, so that that simple ID, that single ID you can keep throughout your life. Then all your publications will be coming under the same ID. So that way you can gather credit for all the work. This is not a problem when you are an initial researcher, but if you have so many publications, many of them might be missing from your list if you don't have this kind of awareness early on. Then coming to manuscript preparation, I think we are running out of time. I will quickly go through. All these may require another session. So these are all some of the things that are there in the manuscript. These things must be there while you prepare your manuscript. And in manuscript, most important parts are abstract and conclusion, because you know that even when you are doing a literature review, you will look at the title, you will look at the topic, and then you will look at the abstract. Then only you will go to the full paper. So abstract is very critical, and the conclusion should not be exactly same as abstract. Both are different. Anyway, writing a manuscript and all will require a separate workshop itself. So I'm not spending more time on this. Publication ethics is extremely important. Now, this is important because, you know, if you are doing nothing, no problem. But if you are doing something and you are caught copying, that is going to do more damage than doing nothing. So this thing, you have to be very specific that plagiarism as well as self-plagiarism is not good. Self-plagiarism is that you are submitting your same manuscript to so many different journals, so many different conferences. That is duplicate publication. Self-plagiarism is you are writing a paper A, then you are publishing it, then you are writing a paper B, significant part of which is from the paper A only. No much difference. So these things will be caught now, you know, because, you know, when a paper is sent for review, the reviewer will have a software provided by the journal. So those people can easily check whether this is a reproduced work or how much of it is copied from something else. And then ethical approval and informed consent, all these things you should be aware. Like suppose you are having a research fund from some agency, you need to get their approval. Suppose your research is sponsored by an industry, you need their approval and you need to get their approval. Suppose you are doing a project at ISRO, you need to get their approval. Those things you should be familiar with. Regarding authorship, then another ethical thing is that only those people who have contributed to your manuscript should be placed as authors. Others should not be. Predatory journals, you should know that there are journals which publish without any proper review. You might be receiving emails from such journals that your paper will be published in 3 days. You may have to pay a fee and all. Such journals are called predatory journals. They may not have, even if your work is very good, if your paper is published in a predatory journal, the problem is that people may not pay enough serious attention to your paper. And also maybe after 5-6 years, this journal may disappear from the internet. Again, your effort will be going waste. So these are something. So the plagiarism issue. See, look at this. India's topmost scientist, C.N.R. Rao, one of his student published some paper which was retracted for plagiarism. And naturally, this person is also in that as an author. So that is a lot of embarrassment, right? It will be published throughout the world that the eminent scientist paper has been caught for plagiarism. And this information, see, is published in Nature, the most prestigious journal in the world. Then quality measures of institutions regarding publications and all we have discussed. Institutions, there are rankings. So while you select an institution for higher studies, you need to select the institution based on some of these rankings. QS is there, for which even I am a referee. Times Higher Education is there. NIRF is there for India. So when you select your institution, make sure that your institution is properly ranked in some of these ranking systems. If you are going for international, go for QS and Times Higher Education rankings. But sometimes you may not be able to get into the top tier institution. Try the next level institution. Then you can look at the department profiles of the, say, suppose some institutions are not ranked among the best, but some of the departments in those institutions will have Nobel laureates. So that is also possible. So look at the department profiles of the institutions, whether they have outstanding professors, outstanding research going on, what is the current status of the research. Faculty profiles, if you can look down at the faculty profiles of some of the faculty, in that way you can decide. So these are all people. Can somebody tell me what is common between all these people? Can somebody unmute and tell me what is common between all these people?
All of them are Indians, sir.
All of them are Indians. Good answer, but not the one I am looking for. There, APJ Abdul Kalam, Kalpana Chawla, Satya Nadella of Microsoft, Narayana Murthy of Infosys, and Baiju Ravindranath of Byju's. So, do you know what is common between all of them?
I have good career in the profession, basically in educational.
That is also a good answer, but not the one I am looking for. One more attempt, then I will let you know.
All of them have humble beginnings.
That is also a good answer. But the answer I was looking for is that all studied in institutions like us. They didn't study in IITs or NITs. They did their undergraduate program in government or aided institutions or private institutions, which are considered to be third tier institutions in India in the academic hierarchy. So therefore, remember that it is possible for you also to become like them. In fact, Baiju Ravindran studied in Government Engineering College, Kannur, which is in Kerala. So one thing that you need to be ready is that whenever you are asked if you can do a job, this is actually a quote from American President Teddy Roosevelt. So this is the kind of attitude that will help us in achieving all these things. Now coming to the broad areas of research in the Mechanical Engineering Department, these are the broad areas. But again, there are specialized areas. You can look up at the faculty profiles, just like I mentioned in the case of other institutions, and see who all are doing active research and who all have the expertise that you require for your project as a mentor. But again, don't be disappointed if there are not people connected with your area of research or project. Because now we have a very active alumni network, so we can look for mentors outside our department if your project requires that kind of support. So that also will be arranged through this Inspire CET group run by the students.
Sir, we have another question by Shihana Fatima.
Yeah.
Is it worth doing a PhD than going for a job straight after MTech? Or is it good to have a working exposure prior to a PhD?
Now that is a personal choice. As far as I am, my answer will be that it will be a personal choice. If you feel that, I had got an admission for a PhD program in IIT Madras immediately after my MTech. I decided against joining. No, that was a personal choice. I wanted to work. I wanted to gain some experience, and I also wanted to. Actually, I chose teaching after my MTech because I wanted to brush up my fundamentals a little bit more. So therefore, it is always a personal choice. If you are confident and if you are very eager, then of course you can choose PhD immediately after MTech, MTech immediately after BTech. Absolutely no problem. I had in fact chosen MTech immediately after my BTech. In fact, I resigned the job and joined the MTech, but that was because there was a gap in between. So before applying for my PG program. So therefore, it is always a personal choice and a circumstance also. Suppose you have a good offer at hand for a job, then choose it. If you have a good offer for a PhD program, then choose that. But it is again a personal choice, and it depends also on the kind of offer it takes. If you have not a very appealing job offer, but a very appealing PhD opening in an internationally reputed university or department, then go for it. That is a personal decision. But of course, you can depend on the advice of your mentors. Yes. Then I would like to offer some project or research opportunities to students who will be interested in our research group. I am actually part of the energy research group in the department. Our research focus areas currently are renewable energy, solar, wind and biomass, hydrogen energy, generation and storage. Some of the students are already working on that. Waste to energy, energy efficient buildings, rocket propulsion, hypersonic vehicles, aerospace engineering, engineering education also. And the tools we are using are experimental, computational, and analytical. And the skill sets required are familiarity with generating computational mesh for CFD, and how to apply. Whoever is interested in doing a project with us should submit a statement of purpose. I was in fact about to speak on statement of purpose also, but because of this, I am postponing that to some other day, because with the statement of purpose, we want to measure the kind of interest a student has. Of course, we are not looking for perfection now, because it is an internal statement of purpose. But if a student is coming with a statement of purpose, we will definitely look at the intent and the skill sets that the student has developed with the aim of doing a project with us. And if that statement of purpose is lacking in some way, and if the student is selected by us, we will of course help that student to develop the skills required to do the project, and also do the publication part, and also help him write a proper statement of purpose. It will be a complete grooming that we offer in our research group. And finally, this is wherever I go, I show this also, because this is the most favorite character from literature for me. David Copperfield, Charles Dickens. This is actually the quotation by David Copperfield only, not me, but this is in fact the reason for success for any young person who is keen on developing an academic career and reach a position of excellence. And finally, today, as I was scrolling through LinkedIn, one of my friends who's actually a professor in a foreign university was sharing this. So success is like an iceberg. What people see is only the top of it. In fact, below that, a lot of things are there. Rejections, sleepless nights. So all these I have undergone in my life also. Rejections, I would like to tell you that this publication itself, you should be, the process of publication itself, you should be willing to accept rejection. The most recent example I can give is that one of my students had his paper rejected 5 times, and we were successful at the 6th attempt. So the paper got accepted by the 6th journal. It is not that the paper was bad. Out of this 5, 3 of them rejected without even giving a proper review, because of the pandemic time and all. A lot of people are trying to publish papers. So journals are over burdened with submitted manuscripts. So the reason for the rejection is that also. So keeping that perseverance is very important in all these processes. We cannot guarantee success, but we can guarantee you that if you persevere and you try to accept the fact that rejections are also part of research, then we will be able to, and the time management, all these things are very, very important. This is beautifully prepared poster. So whatever I had in mind was put in a single poster, which I happened to see accidentally a few hours before this presentation. So this is what is necessary actually for successful people. This is what is necessary for you also. Thank you.
Okay, sir. We have one last question in the chat box by Srinandani. Is it worth to research on technologies that are going obsolete purely out of interest?
What?
Is it worth to research on technologies that are going obsolete purely out of interest?
I don't know what kind of research is going obsolete. Even things which we think are obsolete are coming back in some other form, because when somebody is doing research, that person is giving a lot of effort. So sometimes something may go obsolete. For example, internal combustion engines. People are thinking that it might be going obsolete. But we don't know at some stage in the later time in history, it may also find some application. So we don't know. But that I have already stressed while I was presenting, that you have to select your topic very carefully with the help of the mentors and all. You have to select what is trending in your area of interest and all. So therefore, excellence is something that you have to keep in mind while deciding on a topic.
Okay. Yeah. So, sir, we can wind up the session, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I guess there are no more questions to be asked in the chat box. Appo iniyum kore questions undennu enakku ariyam. Yes, sir. Paranju.
എന്തെങ്കിലും ഇനിയും ചോദ്യങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ I am not an outside presenter. You can always reach me through the Inspire CET group. I am also a member in that, or even through mail or WhatsApp or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Namakappa rendu Inspire CET groups running aayittunde. So you might be a part of the group. So ningade questions endake queries okay, you just have to post it in the group. Namakku Alumni Network ainathunde. We have the faculty added to the group. Appa time to time nammal adu review ennunde, will actually answer your questions. So post your questions and every query that you have in the Inspire CET group. And thank you so much, Abhilash sir, for taking a session right here. നമ്മൾ ഇതുപോലത്തെ ഒരു ഡിസ്കഷൻ സെഷൻ ഇനി ഒരു സീരീസ് പോലെ നമ്മൾ നടത്താൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇറ്റ്സ് ആക്ച്വലി ടു എയ്ഡ് യു, ടു ഹെൽപ്പ് യു ടു ആസ്ക് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ആൻഡ് ഫൈൻഡ് ഔട്ട് ആൻസേഴ്സ് ടു യുവർ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ. ബേസിക്കലി ആ ഒരു പർപ്പസിനാണ് നമ്മൾ നടത്തുന്നത്. സോ ഈ ഒരു ഡിസ്കഷൻ സെഷൻ നമ്മൾ ആദ്യം സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തത് അഭിലാഷ് സാറിന്റെ സെഷൻ വെച്ചാണ്. സോ താങ്ക് യു സോ മച്ച് സർ ഫോർ ടേക്കിംഗ് ഔട്ട് എ ബ്യൂട്ടിഫുൾ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ ഔട്ട് ഹിയർ ആൻഡ് ഫോർ എൻകറേജിംഗ് ദ സ്റ്റുഡൻസ് ടു ആസ്ക് ദ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ്. സോ ഒരു രീതിയിലും ഒരു ഔട്ട്സൈഡർലെസ് who will always come up to you in case of any doubts related to research, higher studies and whatever comes by the way. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
അതിന്റെ കൂടെ ഫ്രം ദ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ടു ദ എൻഡ് 1.5 hour ആണ് നമ്മൾ ഈ ഒരു സെഷന് നമ്മൾ അലോട്ട് ചെയ്ത ടൈം. സോ യു ഗൈസ് വർ വിത്ത് us ഫ്രം ദ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ടു ദ എൻഡ്. നല്ല രീതിയിൽ പാർട്ടിസിപ്പേറ്റ് ചെയ്തതിനും നല്ല രീതിയിൽ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ഒക്കെ ചോദിച്ചതിനും താങ്ക് യു സോ മച്ച്. ഐ ഗെസ് കുറച്ച് പേർക്ക് നിങ്ങൾ നല്ല രീതിയിൽ ടേക്ക് അവേ ഈ ഒരു സെഷൻ വഴി കിട്ടിയിട്ടുണ്ടാവും. ദർ ഇസ് മച്ച് മോർ ടു നോ. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കുറെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. സോ കീപ് കോൺടാക്ടിങ് us by the Inspire CET group. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this session. Thank you.
Thank you all.